Ladies and gentlemen, fans of the Daily Cup of Genre, I'm very happy to welcome Tim Nardelli to the show. Some of you guys might have seen his name, some images, something about some comic character, a demon, what? You might have seen some of that stuff around our website, and it's Demonolith, by the way, guys. He is a lot of things, but we're here to talk about comics in particular. But Tim, why don't you give everyone a sense a little bit about where you're coming from, what else it is that you do, and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Kyle, and hello everyone to the Daily COG. My name is Tim Nardelli. I recently did a comic book referred to as a pilot issue called Night Terror. And in addition to my background in arts and comics, I've also had the wonderful opportunity to collaborate on such films as Dark Web, where I was a co-producer on that, and I contributed concept art to that film. I was also a co-producer on the Amazon TV series Dark Web, and I was very much involved in the art side of that TV show as well. And this is the first comic book project that I have worked on called Night Terror, and it gives me great pleasure to release it to the world and to also debut it here at Genreverse to further promote it and to share the ins and out of this potential new comic book series.
Well, I mean, and looking at the books, which of course, thank you for my copies. There's 3 here. You can see a lot of that. 3 different covers is what you did for your pilot issue, which we'll get into why you call it a pilot issue in a bit. But you can definitely see the influences of, like you said, horror and a little bit of sci-fi. There's almost a Geiger niche to the Demonolith. So I dig that. I have to ask, where did this idea for Night Terror and its characters come from?
Well, it all arcs back to when I was in college at SCAD. I think I was either a sophomore or junior back then. We had an assignment where we had to tell a one-page story in the form of watercolor. And so the task was to tell a single story in the sequential comic book page. And what better way to tell a story than a man waking up from a horrible night terror? So even though that
I can relate.
So even though that assignment had concluded, something about, the simplicity of that page and, just the overall aspect of it in terms of someone waking up from a nightmare, I just gravitated to the potential of that idea in terms of how can we build a story around this? Because while it's such a simplistic, story, of course, but what if there was more to it that we weren't seeing in this page that ever since then I had just gravitated to that and wanting to see what more could we kind of delve into the story and really develop it further. That from there it just became kind of like this catalyst to what was originally just one-page story. Let's see if we can develop it even further.
So there's 3 things that I noticed going through all of this. You have 3 loves going into this project that I could identify. One, a love of comics, otherwise you wouldn't pick that medium. It is a very, very diverse but also difficult medium because of that. I sometimes feel the more options you have, the harder things can become, and comics offer a lot of options, a lot of sandbox to play in. But so you got a love of comics, you got a love of film that goes into this as well, and I guess you say film and music, but I only wanted to say 3 things because it sounds cooler than 4. So you got your love of music and film, but there's also a love of the process of comics, the process of art, the process of film. You did a featurette that goes along with Night Terror.
Yeah.
I can respect that. I'm a big fan of behind the scenes, behind the camera type stuff. Of those three, am I right in identifying those loves first?
Indeed. And as far as being an avid fanboy of comics, you're definitely on track.
There we go. So which is it of those three that really is driving this project? That do you feel?
Well, to be honest with you, Kyle, it's kind of hard to narrow it down to just one, just because, I mean, it's those three elements that you just mentioned that really, gave birth to not only the featurette, but also this comic book series as well, too. And I didn't really mention the featurette, so thank you very much for mentioning that.
Yeah,
Uh,
no problem. You guys can find it at the LRM Online YouTube channel and, of course, LRMonline.com.
And I'll touch on that real quick. The
Sure.
featurette was designed to not only showcase my ability as an artist to how I create comic books, but to also give those who are interested in comic books that want to develop like their own comic books, who otherwise may not know like where to start or how to take like their idea and develop it further. This is the featurette was a means to kind of like showcase people, okay, this is how an idea starts, this is how we put it into practice from beginning, middle, and end. So this is a means for like those who have an interest in comic books and really want to like either write for comics, draw for comics, color for comics, ink for comics, an opportunity to see like how they can get involved. The featurette is kind of like an incubator for potential new IP, because since Night Terror is a new comic book property, people may not be familiar with it. So,
Mm-hmm.
considering how new it is, that this is an opportunity to just give viewers more insight as to who these characters are in the world of Night Terror. That when the actual comic book series is eventually greenlit, which I hope to announce at some point in time in the foreseeable future, there's a little bit more insight to, okay, this is something new, but we got a little glimpse as to who these characters are.
Let's dig into a little bit more into a couple of your characters, including the leading man here on the front, guitar player. Bassists are better, I'm just gonna say, but Matt Deo, right?
Matt Deo.
Deo, there we go. Sorry, Matt Deo. Tell us a bit about Matt, where he comes from in your mind.
Well, Matt Deo was, when I first came up with the character, I knew very little about him. That when I first designed him, I don't know what it was, but I just could feel elements of a musician to this character. So I kind of went with that. And since the story takes place in the early 90s, I know I'm going to date myself here, but the early 90s was definitely the time of grunge music.
Mm-hmm.
That something about having the main character being a musician in this particular time period just seemed very appropriate. When I was further designing the character, I want the character to feel like a musician and really feel like someone would really want to go see him perform. But to answer your question, where he fits in the story is, we have a character that is an aspiring musician who is wanting to pursue his dreams of becoming, a rock star. And life, throws him a curveball as his dreams of becoming a musician end up becoming interrupted, as the night terrors that he once had as a child has now resurfaced. His subconscious and reality are becoming one and the same, and is finding it difficult to distinguish the two. And that's the premise of the story, is him overcoming his inner fear without losing his sanity.
So it's easy to see how people can quickly get into a story like this. Relatability always was like the thing that drew me to more Marvel comics than DC. I can't relate to a perfect god, basically, whose clothes don't even get destroyed in their fights, but I can relate to the nerdy kid that's got money issues. I can relate to the guy that seeks his what's the word I'm looking for? Seeks his comfort in, Vice and a Tony Stark. So I dig that.
Yep, and that's definitely who Matt Deo is, down on his luck, trying to make ends meet while also trying to pursue his dream of, stardom, being the next Kurt Cobain, being uh, as far as music is concerned.
Well, you can't talk about the night terrors and interfere without talking about what appears to be the big bad the demonolith. Talk to us a bit about your creature.
Well, when I first designed her, her design originally was like very generic, red skin, horns, and when I greenlit the project, the featurette and the pilot issue, I just knew that that whole like cookie cutter devilish figure with like horns wasn't going to cut it. So I really want to make the Demonless look like a manifestation of nightmares in her appearance, and essentially, make her look unique and distinguished and signature in the sense of, oh, we've seen something like this already. Oh, this reminds me of something I've seen in the horror film I just saw on Netflix last night. So it was really important to make her overall appearance as distinguished as possible. You had mentioned earlier H.R. Giger. I mean, nothing is more legendary than the xenomorph from the film Alien.
Nothing.
Just
about nothing. Yep.
Which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So obviously we're dealing where the xenomorph is a sci-fi alien creature. The Demonless is, a horror-based creature. So while the general aesthetic was vastly different, but coming up with something landmark with the Demonless was definitely the end game, just like with Ridley Scott co-designing the xenomorph with H.R. Giger.
Out of curiosity, you mentioned Alien being one of your favorite movies. What is your favorite movie creature? Like, what creature of nightmares just really does Tim Nardelli dig?
It's definitely the xenomorph. I very much love the first Alien films, but the second Aliens film is by far my favorite because I'm a big fan of James Cameron, and I also love like his redesign over the xenomorph figure. It's kind of hard to describe, but I've always admired the design and look and feel because that's unlike anything we've ever seen in cinema. And when the first Alien film came out in 1979, if I'm not mistaken, we had never seen like an alien creature like that before. We've seen countless designs of aliens, but nothing like that before. And that is just something truly unique. When the second Aliens film came out, the way in which James Cameron, shot that film and shot the xenomorphs, you barely saw them. They were usually in the dark and you only saw like hints of like blue lights. And that just really intensified like that whole overall sci-fi fear and horror.
To kind of wrap up the story or not story, but the stuff here in the book, you do have another realm, another world, the necro plane, and it's one thing to create characters or even creatures that exist here on Earth, so to speak. It's another to look at creating an additional world. Tell us a bit about the necro plane and what came into creating that.
Well, as I had stated earlier, when designing the Demonless, I wanted to avoid putting the character's overall design in like a visual box because as an audience, as like comic book readers, film buffs, and TV buffs, we're accustomed to seeing like, some of the religious tropes in cinema these days, that it was very important to, much like with the Demonolith, it was very important that the necroplane didn't have like any hellish like elements to it, with the exception of the flames. But that had to be in there. That it was
gotta have fire.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what did I say?
I was just saying you gotta have fire.
Exactly. So it was very important that the necroplane had like this demonic, nightmarish feel to it, as opposed to hellfire all over the place. We didn't want to do that. Part of what inspired the idea is years ago when I was in Paris, France, there was in fact, I mean, there is in fact below the city, there are the catacombs where there's just like wall after wall filled with skeletons as a result of the Black Plague. When you go in there, it's not like these tormented souls. It's just skeletons that are just occupying every square inch of the catacombs. And I also remember another time when I was in Rome, Italy, when I was on tour. As you may know, Rome, Italy is built on top of another city. That there are areas in Rome, Italy, where you can look down and see what they refer to as necropolis.
Mm-hmm.
So when I just looked down there, you could see like the remnants of what used to be, and God only knows what else is down there. That when I was designing the Demolis's like very dwelling, I wanted to kind of bring out that same feeling that I had when seeing the catacombs and also seeing necropolis. So instead of like seeing blood, guts, and torture in the necroplane, all we're seeing is like these caves and like these skeletons and with a bit of flames. And since the necroplane is like an island in a supernatural landscape, I thought it would be even more interesting to have like this kind of like lava-y surface.
Mm-hmm.
So it just felt more like this natural like and demonic architecture as opposed to going all Event Horizon.
I would wager we covered all the big points, the big things that everyone should be really interested in seeing. Was there anything else in particular that you wanted to cover, or are you ready to shamelessly self-promote this book and tell people more about where they can find things connected to it?
Well, as of right now, in terms of where to pick up a copy of all three covers that you just showed, is endeavor-comics.com. And with that said, I would like to take this time to greatly thank you and everyone else at Genreverse for promoting this comic book series and for promoting the featurette. The feedback we've been getting and, the fanboy and fangirl endorsements that we've been getting with both the featurette and the comic book is just absolutely wonderful. So thank you all for promoting this.
I get in on the ground floor, ladies and gentlemen, because this is like my son's college, and then this one's like our second house, and this is like the Japan vacation. So, all right, Tim, it's been really great having you on here again. Thank you so much, guys. Check out Tim's books and other things going on. You can find it all, of course, lrmonline.com. And Endeavor, as Tim had mentioned. There will be links in the description box down below for you guys. Thanks again, and we'll get back to Manny and future Kyle again.
Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel for future updates and notifications. See you again soon, and take care.